What have you been working on?
We have a lot going on with our planning department right now.
Yeah. That like
All right, we can go ahead and get started. As I mentioned, I am recording tonight's presentation, so if you need to re-listen to it, share it with others, we will be posting it online. But please allow me to introduce tonight's speaker, Stephen from HomeWorks Energy, who is our representative working with the town on through the Mass Saves program, and which we're going to learn a bit more about what they have going on. But tonight we're going to be learning about how to save energy and save money through participation of the state's no-cost Mass Saves Energy program, which we partnered with HomeWorks Energy on to help offer that service to residents. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to our speaker tonight and get ready to learn more.
Thank you, Stella. Thanks for having me, and thank you for organizing this. So welcome, everybody. As Stella said, I'm going to be walking through what the Mass Save program offers, particularly for residences. There are some other aspects of the program, but we're going to be focusing tonight on just home energy assessments, which is single up to 4 family properties. So getting started here. So Mass Save, the history of the program is that it's been around since the 1970s in one form or another. So, 50 odd years ago, each electric and gas utility ran their own version of the program. And it's in 2008 that they all came together to form what we now know of as Mass Save. So the biggest utility companies in the state all participate in this program. There's some municipal, smaller utility companies that do not, but by and large, almost every single town across the state of Massachusetts is participating in Mass Save. So some kind of overview of the program. Mass Save is a state mandated program. Every state throughout the country has an energy efficiency program. We're fortunate that Mass Save for several years has been voted the #1 program across the country. So it's a well-run program and has a variety of offerings for folks depending on what their needs are in the home. So the program is, as I said, state mandated. It's sponsored by the utility company. So the big players, of course, being companies like Eversource, National Grid, and Columbia Gas. Out in Western Mass, there's companies like Berkshire, Blackstone Gas, Unitil, but the biggest ones are those Eversource and National Grid. So there's a big question often of where the funding comes from and how Mass Save is operating. So of course, if you ever look at your utility bills, you notice on the bottom there's those several different charges, renewable energy charge and a few other ones. There's one charge in particular called the energy efficiency charge, and that's what funds the Mass Save program. So it's about 5% of the bill that goes into a pool of money that's available for homeowners to make retrofitting and other home improvement type projects, help them save energy, save money at home, and just realize those opportunities. So as I've said, there's a few different aspects that fall under the program. We deal specifically with the home energy assessments, which is single through up to 4 family properties. There are chapters of the program that deal with 5-unit and larger apartment buildings, and there are also opportunities for commercial assessments for commercial buildings. So tonight we're going to be focusing on just the residential side. When other opportunities come up, if folks do have questions about the larger multifamilies or business, I'm happy to take those, but generally we're focusing on the residential side of things. So Mass Save assessment, just by and large, I'm breaking this up into 2 key points here to start out, and this is just a sign of recent times. We of course offer the traditional home energy assessment, and this is a comprehensive look at the home, top to bottom, see where folks can save energy, reduce their carbon footprint, save money. And in light of how 2020 went and those circumstances, the program began offering what we call a virtual energy assessment. So this is the same basic process. It's just done via pictures, phone, video chat, and we're looking for all the same things in this. It's just that we're aware that people have unique circumstances. Not everybody wants contractors or assessors coming into the home right now. So this is just an outlet for people who want to participate in the program, but just want a way to do it remotely and they're however they're comfortable. So next in our order here is health and safety check. So this is part of the home energy assessment process. It's just doing due diligence in the home. We do what we call a combustion safety test to make sure the primary heating system is working properly. We're also on the lookout for things like asbestos, of course, that have been commonly used in the past in home building. So it's just as we're going through the home, we're on the lookout for those health and safety issues as well. Excuse me. And moving on, so one of the big aspects of the program is weatherization and insulation. This is an increasingly big portion of the program. We're fortunate to be in an area where there's a lot of beautiful historic homes in the area, and what comes hand in hand with that is that a lot of these homes were constructed at a time when things like insulation there wasn't quite as much of an emphasis placed on it. So this is a big area where the program is realizing a lot of energy reduction, just helping people use less fossil fuels to, and also save money at home. And moving on, we also deal in heating and cooling systems in the Mass Save program. So this is replacing older, lower efficiency heating and cooling systems with newer, higher efficiency heating systems. And of course, that just means, again, that, we're using less fossil fuels to accomplish the same amount of work. And last on our list is the heat loan. So this is state financing, and it's what's available when you have a home energy assessment, and it's available to help you basically accomplish the things we listed above. So you can use it to apply for weatherization upgrades, for heating and cooling upgrades. It can also be used for things like replacing single pane windows or mitigating some of the health and safety issues if any of those are found. So it's just kind of a comprehensive way to, make some of those home improvement projects that I mentioned. So that's our rundown. We'll be going through it, a little more in depth here, piece by piece. So as I said, the home energy assessment is just a comprehensive look at the home. I like to say it's top to bottom. So we're going to look for areas of the home where, in the winter where cold air is leaking in, that's, starting in the basement, making sure that it's properly insulated, the walls throughout the home, the attic, and another important portion of the home energy assessment there are some slides dedicated to it coming up, but we also do things like, of course, LED light bulbs, programmable thermostats, smart power strips, water saving devices, and all of that is just part of the whole package of using less energy in the home. Okay, so this is a few notes on working with older homes. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of historic homes in Massachusetts, especially particularly kind of historic town like Lexington. And of course, older homes didn't have as much insulation as they do, when things are built new today. So building code started to change in the 1980s, and that's when you really started seeing things like, a foot of insulation in the attic or walls filled with cellulose or fiberglass. And working with older homes, we take into consideration things that we call pre-weatherization barriers in the field. So these are things like knob and tube wiring, which is the original kind of electrical wiring that was used. Still perfectly functional, just a little bit of a fire hazard compared to the modern form of electrical. So we take note of things like that. Structural integrity, just again, some of these beautiful older houses are hundreds of years old. Water damage, always a consideration in Massachusetts, and things like asbestos and vermiculite. And so another point about older homes, a lot of older homes have those single pane windows, beautiful, but folks are considering moving to double pane. What the program does for this is you can use that heat loan I mentioned. So there's 0% financing you can use to move up from single to double pane if folks are thinking about that. So there's opportunities there. One of the key points I want to just touch on for a moment is being mindful of working with walls. So some of these, older homes, they're well built, they're beautiful homes. The walls are one area where we're just very conscious of being careful with that. What we do in the fields, we use cellulose insulation, or some folks might have heard of blown-in insulation. It's just literally using a high-pressure hose to blow insulation into the wall cavity. And of course, with older construction, we just want to be sure that it's structurally sound and we're taking proper care of, our historic homes. And for folks who might have one of those beautiful older homes, the cool thing is that there's still lots of relatively low-hanging fruit, as we might say. Even if you're not in an area where you want to or can have your walls worked on, there's some very other simple, readily available parts of the program, such as air sealing which is using spray foam insulation. You can still insulate the attic. There's also instant savings measures, or ISMs as we call them, like the LED light bulbs and water saving devices. And you can also insulate things like crawl spaces. So there's several aspects of the program. And even if one of them isn't exactly the right fit for a property, kind of the nice thing is that there's several others usually available. Okay, so moving on, this is kind of the traditional first step in a home energy assessment. So this is the combustion safety test, and whether you have a hot water boiler or a hot air furnace, we're just going to perform a simple combustion safety test on it. That's to make sure that it's working safely and efficiently, that there's no issues like carbon monoxide or anything like that. Just doing that nice diligent safety check. So we'll test the heating system, we'll test the hot water tank, and we'll also test the stove if it's a gas stovetop. Okay, and so moving through the home, we're looking for areas where we can reduce energy usage, make the home more comfortable. So starting in the top left here, we have the rim joist, which is the perimeter of the basement. A lot of older homes wouldn't have insulation here, so we can put something like fiberglass there or a foam board to help insulate that area. And then in the top right, we have wall cavities. So this is very typical. If most folks you've looked in an attic at some point, this is one of the most typical kinds of insulation. You'll see this pink fiberglass batting. Still pretty good insulation. What the program is moving more towards using is this cellulose insulation. It has a higher insulation value, or R value, There's some cool benefits, like it has a lower carbon footprint to produce it. It's fire resistant. Bugs also tend to hate it. So it has several, additional benefits of using this kind of insulation. We also use it, so we'll use it in the walls, as I mentioned here in the top right. We'll also use it frequently in the attic. So in the attic, we can, give you a nice clean coat of 15 inches of cellulose across the board in the attic. That keeps the house warmer in the winter and cooler in the summer. So it's really a year-round kind of benefit. And then in the bottom left here, this is foam board, or polyiso, we call it. This is the same material as spray foam, which is, famously used in recent years. It's a really high R value insulation. And in this particular case, this is called a knee wall. If anybody's living in a cape or a colonial with a finished third floor, this is kind of just like the side portion of the attic. And we would be insulating that to, again, just keep the home more comfortable, reduce energy costs. Okay, and this is a before and after shot of what we might do in the program. So beforehand, we have kind of a typical, what you might find in an older home, spotty or partial insulation that over the years maybe has been moved around here and there. And the goal of the program is just to bump that up to a nice clean coat of insulation, 15 inches across the board, and really, just keep the house well insulated.
How do you have access to the electrical wires afterwards if you basically seal everything on the top? On the right side, you can't see anything.
Yeah, thank you for the question. That's a very good point. And what we do in that case is we actually use a little bit of fiberglass batting to what we call like damming a river, what have you. So we dam off an area of the attic and protect the areas like electrical wiring, pull down staircase, other things that might need to, homeowner would still need to have access to. So in those cases, we would protect them with the fiberglass batting.
Okay.
Thank you for the question. Okay. And these are our weatherization goals. So this is in particular air sealing, as we call it. And also this is kind of a particular aspect of the program. So I'll be touching on this in a little more detail later on, but air sealing is something that the program offers at 100% rebate. So there's no cost to have this aspect of the work done. We take some of that spray foam and we insulate the top plates or other air penetrations in the attic. We do the same thing in the basement. And we also do things like, this is an insulated foam box that can go over a pull down staircase in the attic. It's another thing that's offered at no cost through Mass Save. Okay, and touching on the health and safety aspects that we talked about a little bit earlier. These are the things that Mass Save is looking at, just to make sure that everything is safe and sound if we're going to move ahead with other kinds of work. In the top left, we have some mold. No big deal, just something that we're going to take note of and make further recommendations on how to deal with that. Top right is knob and tube wiring. Same thing. It's still perfectly functional. Just something that would prevent us from insulating that area. And there are aspects of the program like the heat loan where folks want to update this and get a more modern type of electrical wiring. There's opportunities available for that. In the bottom left, we have vermiculite, which is a pretty effective type of insulation. Actually, it's completely natural. The issue they found with that is that the term people are more familiar with is asbestos. And vermiculite was just found to be, they were mining from an area that had asbestos in the area. So we treat it just as a blanket policy as though it does have asbestos in it. And then final point here, I left this one for last just because it's a little bit different than the others. Folks who have lived in New England for a good number of years are probably familiar with our not so friendly ice dams. If you were in the area in blizzard of 2013, you probably had some experience with this. The reason I left this one for last is because fortunately, and typically, not always, but typically, ice dams are something that can be prevented with improved insulation because it reduces heat loss out the roof during the winter. And of course, that heat loss is what causes snow to melt and then refreeze due to the cold temperatures, because there's less heat escaping the snow doesn't melt in the first place. So fortunately, you know, the program does have some benefit on preventing ice dams. Okay, and then this these are instant savings measures, or ISMs as we like to call them. So it includes things like LED light bulbs, water saving aerators, water saving shower heads. And I will say that, you know, I used to be a home energy specialist before I moved into kind of the community outreach role. And I've, you know, installed this shower head at my own property. It's amazingly high pressure for something that saves water. So it's something that, you know, I've gotten quite a bit of use out of it and appreciate that one. And then in the bottom left here, we have programmable thermostat. This is very similar to a traditional thermostat. It's just something that you can set on a timer. So you have it kick on at a certain time in the morning, kick off at a certain time at night. Just have it on a regular schedule. And you can also have it on a different schedule for the weekends, you know, for those of us who like to sleep in on the weekends. So these things kind of all together are things that we call them instant savings measures because they start reducing the energy bill, you know, from the moment they're installed. And I do also want to take a moment to mention here that traditionally we would install these things in the home. We're still installing the thermostats, but again, just because of developments with COVID and other aspects, what we do now is we leave them for the homeowner to install. So we'll leave up to 25 light bulbs, the water saving devices, advanced power strips. We leave 2 of those, and we will still install the thermostat. So we're still happy to do that. That's absolutely no cost through the program. Okay, and so this is a little bit more on those instant savings measures we just talked about. So this is a home energy assessment I performed for my parents a couple of years ago at their house in Westwood. So this is a breakdown, and I'm not going to do every single item here, but, you know, going through it quickly, it includes the visit. I installed the thermostat for them, an aerator on the faucet, a shower head, and then about 10 to 15 different kinds of light bulbs. You can see at the bottom here, the total value of that is about $500. The cost of the homeowner is always $0 through the program, and it also includes a little annual savings measurement. So for them, it was going to save them about $200 a year, you know, give or take. Okay, and then this is an insulation proposal. This is at a house I assessed down in Plymouth. And earlier I touched on air sealing versus, you know, typical, you know, tangible insulation. This is where the program makes a slight distinction. So the top portion of this, these recommendations are the air sealing portion, and the bottom section are the weatherization or insulation. So the air sealing is covered 100% off through the program. For this homeowner, it involves some door sweeps and weather stripping for the exterior doors. They got that foam box for their pull down staircase in the attic, and also that spray foam air sealing as again in the attic. So for them, it was about $950 of work. This is always no cost through the program, this air sealing portion of it, and it saves them about $175 a year. And moving on to the bottom, this is that physical insulation we talked about. So insulating their walls, a little bit more insulation in the attic, and then they had a little bit of need for some foam board insulation. So this all totaled up to be a little less than $3,000, about $2,800. For this portion of the work, the state kicks in a 75% rebate. So for the $2,800, they chipped in about $2,100, leaving the homeowner with a $700 copay and about $500 in annual savings. So for this homeowner, this investment paid off in about 1.4 years. And they make that money back, and at that point, they're just saving money. Home's more comfortable, you know, reducing their fossil fuel usage. Okay, and after we've gone through the home and you know, done all of our assessing, we sit down with the homeowner and go over our report with them. So very similar to the things that I just showed you. Every home's a little bit different. You know, we'll leave different instant savings measures, make different recommendations for using less energy in the home, and we just go over that on a case-by-case basis with the homeowner, just reviewing all of our findings. And this is you know, in light of recent events. So we are being very cautious. We're taking full precaution and dealing with, you know, everybody's home is like a personal place to them. So we just want to be extra mindful of being cautious, taking every safety measure that we can. So our guys are using full body disinfectant or Tyvek suits. We're of course using masks, things like safety goggles when we're doing work, just taking every measure we can to work safely. And this is something I just wanted to touch on briefly. I get a lot of questions about this, so I just wanted to mention a little bit about heat pumps or ductless mini splits. The two terms are kind of synonymous. For those of us who don't have ductwork in the home, this is a very high efficiency system. It's called ductless because you don't need traditional ductwork, and these do heating and cooling very efficiently. And they can be installed in specific rooms. So you can insulate, you know, you can treat just one room, whether it's your living room or a TV room or a bedroom. So they're kind of custom and can be, you know, flexibly used around different portions of the home. Okay, and then this is the heat loan I mentioned at the beginning. So this is the state financing that's available through having a home energy assessment. It's 0% financing. It can be used for pretty much everything I've talked about tonight. So that's heating systems, hot water, air conditioning, replacing single pane windows, insulation, copay, and addressing health and safety issues. The one thing I'll say here is that this is a one-time use per household. Typically, people don't use it for something like insulation because, as I showed you on that kind of recommendation page, the copay on an insulation job is typically, as far as home improvement projects go, it's a pretty slight cost in the grand scheme of it. People tend to save this for the bigger ticket items like heating system replacement or single pane window replacement, which of course are much more significant costs than something like insulation. So a couple guidelines for you know, navigating this process. Any upgrades, of course, have to just meet the Mass Save standards we've talked about tonight. And the maximum is $25,000 value over 7 years. So that's kind of the guideline, that 25,000, 7 years, zero interest is kind of the baseline for the heat loan. Multifamily properties have what they call an expanded heat loan, and that just increases the financing options. So this is one of my favorite parts of the program. So, you know, this is a very like tangible, small scale way to deal with environmental issues that we're facing in this day and age. It's cool to see just the environmental benefits that these home energy assessments do have. So this is the carbon footprint tracker for the last couple of years of assessments we've done in Lexington, performing over 600 energy assessments. You can see that it's the equivalent of planting over 200,000 new trees, 223,000 new trees, or reducing gasoline usage by over 1.5 million gallons. And the things that we've talked about tonight are what make this possible. So, you know, installing new LED bulbs that use a lot less energy than the traditional incandescent, those programmable thermostats, the smart power strips, new high efficiency heating and cooling systems, water saving devices. And so there's just, you know, a lot of environmental benefit to having this just everyday kind of work done. It does have a bigger picture environmental benefit. Okay, and you know, kind of to sum things up, why do people partake in this program? So everybody has different reasons. You know, I'm big into the environmental side of things. One of the cool things is that, you know, bottom line is it does save people money. These home improvement projects are designed specifically to use less energy. So if you're using less energy, you're going to be saving money. It does make the home more comfortable, and that's a year-round benefit. So naturally, you know, it's freezing out this week in January, February, but it's also going to make the home more comfortable in the summer, help you, you know, cool the home more efficiently. So it's a year-round benefit, making the home more comfortable. It's making our homes greener, our communities greener. We're going to be using less fossil fuels. and just, making a nice environmental impact, helping out our communities that way. We also address those health and safety issues that we talked about. That's just a case-by-case thing, and very frequently, something that we just kind of go through it quickly, and it's not a big part of the assessment, but we, address those issues when we come across them, and help where we're able to. And then just preservation of the home. So, again, New England climates are pretty difficult and challenging in certain ways. This kind of weatherization work just makes the homes more durable and increases their longevity. So several different reasons why people participate in the program, and everybody has their unique reasons, kind of something to pick from for whatever your motivation is. And then just a moment to talk about community partnerships. So community partnerships are an important way that we, reach and discuss this program with Massachusetts residents. It can be hard to get the information about this program out readily and available to people throughout Massachusetts. So community partnerships are one of the ways that we just, have opportunities like this to speak with people in a smaller setting. And, as part of our work, we're making donations to the Lexington Global Warming Action Coalition, or GWAC. For each home energy assessment that we perform, we're going to be making that $25 donation to support their environmental work and just the wide variety of projects that they have going on. So if anybody is interested in participating, I have the link and my personal work number listed here. I'm always happy to take questions about this. And this is my last slide. So if anybody does have any questions, it'd be, by all means, jump in, and happy to take those now.
How do you perform the virtual assessment compared to on-site visit?
Yeah, good question. So we start with some photographs is one of the key things. So take photographs of the things that we talked about tonight. So heating system, walls, attic, light bulbs, other things that you would need from the instant savings measures. You take all those pictures, about 10 to 15 pictures before the phone call, upload them to our website, and we'll take the phone call, or a video chat. We'll go through all the pictures with you, and still make our recommendations. Now, one key point with that is
so you don't do a walkthrough, right?
So yeah, good question. So we will still do a walkthrough when we do. Yeah, we do that when if you're interested in having the installation work done, we'll send somebody out to really just confirm all the measurements and everything. Just because, as you can imagine, you can learn quite a bit from pictures, but it's different than measuring it in person and getting that hands-on kind of experience.
Okay.
Hi, I had a question or something that I want to confirm. I saw that you showed that you performed 634 assessments in Lexington since 2018. So we certainly have a lot more homes in Lexington to get to have an assessment. But my understanding also is that if you had an assessment, let's say 3 or 4 or 10 years ago, you can get another one. It's still covered. And the reason why I say that is I've done that. And I had, it turns out that I think with the air sealing, it looks like maybe companies have started doing more in terms of air sealing. And so I just want you to confirm that and say it's worth, if it's been a few years since you've had one, it may be worth getting another one because there could be more savings in your house.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. So the current rule for the program is you're eligible to have the assessment done every 3 years. So just as a kind of the baseline there. Now, from a perspective of what's changed in the program, or what the benefit is of having another assessment done, the air sealing is something that we can do what we call touch-up air sealing. So maybe if things have changed in the attic in particular, or possibly in the basement as well, we can do touch-up air sealing and just refresh that and make sure that it's still reducing airflow. There's also other benefits, like they recently increased the amount of attic insulation. So they bumped that up from 12 inches to 15 inches. So there's an increased benefit there. and some of the instant savings measures are different and updated. So we have an LED bulb now for pretty much everything from little candle bulbs you might have in like a chandelier or something, globes over the bathroom. Excuse me. There's LED three-way bulbs now for the lamps that click three times, floodlights outdoors. And so those are, I would say, the recent additions to the program that even if you had an assessment, like you said, 5 or 10 years ago, there's some kind of fresher new offerings that are available.
And the floodlight outdoors, do you install them? Because I so usually have very high.
Yeah, so great question. Typically, and I used to love to make a point of this, that we would install everything as recently as about a year ago. But because of COVID, unfortunately, we just have to leave the light bulbs. That's the current Mass Save policy. That might be changing, and there might be a time the next year or so where we're back to installing them ourselves. But currently, the only things we're going to install ourselves are the programmable thermostats.
Right, but this is indoors. What about outdoors? The lights outdoors, will you install them?
Yeah, unfortunately, still the policy is we just do the thermostats.
Okay.
I have a question. I was just thinking about how my house is set up. I think I would really benefit from somebody walking through the house. Will that be an option? I'm probably thinking of waiting at least several months till people are somewhat vaccinated, but will that be an option?
Yeah.
Virtual.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're still doing in-person assessments. We can do a virtual assessment and then do the walkthrough later, or we can do the full in-person assessment. The in-person assessments are still operating much the same as they ever did. We're just not doing things like the light bulbs, and we do paperwork outside the home just to reduce time in home a little bit. But the same fundamental process is still there. We're still happy to do the in-person, top to bottom assessment.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep.
What is likely to happen in a case of wall insulation and basement insulation that was done? One part of the house, it was done in the 60s, 1960, and very likely under insulated. It's fiberglass. Yep. And in the other part of the house, it was done about 18 years ago. Is that, or do you feel that those are candidates for remediation or replacement?
Yeah, that's definitely a case by case kind of basis. We do the retrofitting where we can do the blown-in insulation, usually from the exterior of the home, which is a nice benefit. But for those kind of case-by-case things, what we do is simply a physical probe. So somewhere like behind a piece of furniture or potentially in a closet, we do a very small borehole and a physical probe in the wall. If it looks like maybe you have 1 or 2 inches of insulation, as long as we can fit the hose in to do the blown insulation, we could update that and give you a nice new coat of insulation. Just kind of a case by case thing and it really depends on exactly how much room there is in the wall.
So what you're saying is that there's a potential of actually, if there's already fiberglass insulation in the cavity of the wall, you could actually blow in additional material. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's
okay.
Not 100% of the time. For instance, like in a 2x4, if the wall cavity is 4 inches, if there's 2 or 3 inches in there, it's probably not we're going to be able to fit the hose in. But it was pretty common that they would use like something like 1 inch of fiberglass, in which case we would be able to do the blown-in insulation. So it's a case by case thing, but it's definitely a possibility.
Okay, great.
I just want to draw attention real quick before they get past. There's a couple questions in the chat.
Oh, okay.
One from Bob and Janet Lawson on how do you tell if there's insulation in your walls, and can you ascertain that with a virtual assessment?
Yeah, great question. So that is something that we do. We are equipped with thermal cameras, but one of the things for the program is that there's nothing as definitive and, you know, surefire as the physical probe. And this is something that we're happy to work with homeowners on. It's really important that we can get a physical probe somewhere in the exterior walls. So you can pick somewhere, again, you know, behind furniture, behind a painting, and we'll do plaster sheetrock over it afterwards. But we kind of need to do that physical probe somewhere on the exterior walls just to guarantee, verify exactly what, you know, is existing in the walls already.
And then there's a couple people I see with their microphone unmuted. So go ahead and ask your questions if you still have.
I had a question which might be kind of naive. So once we get the assessment, is all the work, the contracting done by Homeworks Energy, or do we need to find someone to do the work ourselves? I just wasn't sure how that is set up.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, we're fortunate to be able to do everything in-house. So we do the assessment, we can do the work. We also handle all of the rebate procedure. So we do as much of the legwork as we can as far as the procedural things.
So there's no advantage to trying to get competitive quotes? I'm just not trying to undermine you, but just to understand.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things Mass Save kind of guarantees in their paperwork is that whoever does the assessment and the work, it's the same across the board. So we're going to give you the exact same pricing for the exact same, you know, area of work.
Thank you.
Yep.
I see another question in the chat. Somebody's wanting to know, their daughter must have had an assessment several years ago and had an authorized contractor from Mass Save do insulation in the attic, and then had an issue with mold after that. So how do customers handle, you know, errors or issues that might occur after the work has been done?
Absolutely. So there's a couple things, and thank you for bringing that up. So you can do a quality control assessment with Mass Save. That's something that, you know, that's always available. It's no cost to make sure the work is done properly. We also are making updates and adjustments to how the program is performed. So the program does take ventilation pretty seriously, which is the main thing in preventing mold in the attic. So the program has you need 1 square foot of venting for every 300 square feet of attic. What the program has done now is also to add high venting and low venting, so that you have something like a ridge vent or like a mushroom vent in the top of the attic, as well as soffit venting around the perimeter of the attic if possible. So we do pay special attention to that, and we, you know, kind of optimize the venting as much as possible. If there are still issues, you know, we'll deal with that on a case-by-case basis, and we're happy to address any issues as they come up and make sure they're done, you know, addressed properly.
Question: if your contractors are, if you basically recommend to replace windows, okay, due to leaks or etc., do you do the work yourself, or we have to get contractors for it?
Yeah, so windows are one thing that Mass Save partners do not do in-house. Okay. We can make recommendations for that. We can help you with the financing if that's something you're interested in. But windows are one thing. Yeah, you know, you'd have to shop around a little bit and potentially get a few quotes if that's something you're interested in.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Do you know when you're going to go back to on-site visits, or there's nothing that you have in mind yet?
Yeah, great. So I should have made that a little clearer. I think we're still doing the in-person assessments. They're just, you know, a little bit reduced in time. I don't know exactly when the full, you know, like installing light bulbs and stuff, that's kind of to be determined. But as far as just having an in-person assessment done, that can still be, you know, that's still an ongoing and readily available piece of the program.
Okay.
So whether the assessment is virtual or not is up to the homeowner.
Exactly. Yeah. 100% up to the homeowner, and really just, your personal preference and comfort.
Well, if no one else has a question, I wanted to plug my definite good experience with the heat loan. A couple of years ago, as I mentioned, having another assessment put air source heat pumps in my house, which I'm very, very happy with, and I did it with a heat loan. So I just wanted to give a plug for that.
Thank you. It's good to hear the firsthand experiences.
I have a question about recessed lighting.
Sure.
And I had an assessment done about probably 5 years ago, and they replaced a lot of the bulbs.
Yep.
But now I see out on the market these screw it. You remove the a part of the recessed lighting, and then you put a new plate in that's already a unit that already has a new bulb in it. It's a high efficiency LED bulb, and you screw it in to the. Is that one of the products that you're now offering?
Yeah, good question. So what we do is we do what we call a recessed light cover, and we do that in the attic if the light fixture protrudes into the attic. As far as I know, I'm not sure that we offer those.
LEDs.
Those alternate fixtures.
Okay. Because those are incredibly high efficient. They're only like $1 a year to run.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you can buy them in Costco. Okay, I bought a bunch of them in Costco and replaced the whole lights, whole bulbs, that protrude to the ceiling.
Yes, that's exactly where I saw them, and I bought 2 of them, and they work wonderfully well.
Yeah, I bought about 20 and replaced everything. So
yeah.
Big Costco fan myself. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we had one question about contact information, and so I just went ahead and put the scheduling link for Lexington and also my work number in the chat. If anybody does have any questions, I'm always available. Happy to discuss.
Yeah, thanks everyone for your questions and your attendance tonight. As you mentioned, if you have any questions, feel free to email him or myself, and pass this information along to your neighbors. The more participants, the better in reaching our sustainability goals and helping you all save money. So feel free to tune off unless anyone has some other questions.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you again, Stella, for organizing this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.